What's up guys, Ame here with another video. In this one, we're continuing our dungeon dive series and heading once again to the Coilfang Reservoir, but this time we're attacking the mechanical heart of the Naga's draining operation in Zangarmarsh, the Steamvaults. Let's get into it. Upon entering the instance, you will encounter Coilfang warriors. These guys will be in defensive stance, use a battle shout, and a mortal blow which reduces an enemy's stamina and attack speed for 12 seconds. Nothing crazy here at all, just some beefy tank and spank mobs that you'll get down easy. Coilfang Sirens are caster mobs that will cast an AoE 1.5 second fear, arcane flare that does initial damage and leaves an arcane dot, and then a classic lightning bolt which is pretty self-explanatory, just a lightning bolt doing some nature damage. When fighting these, just pull them back away from the other mobs so that you aren't feared into additional packs. Coilfang engineers have two abilities. They'll net you to the ground and also throw bombs at you that do moderate damage. Nothing too serious and normal, but in heroic you can make sure to spread out so that only one person is hit by these bombs. Bog Overlords are one of the more dangerous mobs in the dungeon. These guys slap and are tanky to boot. Melee really have to watch out here, as he will use a trample that does AoE damage in a melee range. There's also a poison cloud that will do damage to those in melee, and he'll shoot poison bolts out to random people in the raid. Lastly, he'll use fungal decay which does damage over time and slows. When fighting these, ranged should stay at max range, and melee, you should take responsibility for your own health and get out of melee range if you're going to die. Coilfang Oracles along with Bog Overlords are arguably the most dangerous mob in the dungeon if not dealt with correctly, and are the mobs I've personally wiped to the most. These oracles are healers that will use Frost Shock, dealing damage and slowing, a heal that will need to be interrupted, and most importantly, Sonic Burst. This does a tiny bit of AoE damage, but most importantly will silence anyone hit by it for 6 seconds. If you are a healer, the most important mechanic you can know in this whole dungeon, the only thing to take away from this, is to stay out of range of these oracles at all costs. If you're silenced, it will almost always lead to a wipe. Tidal Surgers are some water elementals that will just be walking around the dungeon, and alone they're not dangerous, but they pat around the first room in the dungeon and can be very deadly if aggroed while fighting another group. They will cast a Frost Nova, freezing the player in place, and use Water Spout, which is a direct damage frost spell. They're immune to frost and also come with a group of little Steam Surger buddies. Just be mindful of where these guys are and pull them solo and they'll go down easy. Coilfang Myrmidons are another basic melee mob using a cleave and execute. Like all mobs with cleave, melee DPS dealers, you'll just want to stand behind them or you're gonna have a bad time. Coilfang Sorceresses are mages, and since they are mages, of course they're gonna be annoying. They'll use Frost Nova, freezing players in place, a basic Frostbolt, and also a Blizzard. You can interrupt the Blizzard if the damage is just a little bit too much. With those trash mobs down, that brings us to our first boss, Hydromancer Thespia. She has 3 abilities. She will spawn a lightning cloud that sends lightning down in an AoE area, dealing heavy damage. Players will need to move out of this as fast as possible. In heroic mode, she'll actually overlap these clouds, so there will be times where 2 clouds are up at once, so you really have to watch where you're going. Everyone should be spread out so that multiple people aren't hit by the lightning cloud at once, and the tank should be ready to kite the boss if it is cast on top of the melee group. The next ability is Enveloping Winds, which prevents the player from moving for 6 seconds. Alone, this isn't too serious, but paired with the lightning cloud, it can be especially deadly since you can get trapped under the cloud and take that heavy damage. It is dispellable, so if you have people that can dispel, make sure you do that. Lastly, she will use a Lung Burst that is a dispellable debuff that does moderate damage every tick. Alongside the Hydromancer will be her 2 water elementals. These elementals will use Water Bolt Volley, which does heavy frost damage to everyone in line of sight. Run into her little room to start the fight. All DPS will start on an elemental, kill it, and then move on to the next elemental. These elementals can be stunned and interrupted to minimize the amount of AoE damage going out. If you have a Warlock, you can actually keep one elemental banished for the duration of the fight, and even chain fear the other one with everyone focused on the boss. Once the elementals are killed, all DPS will move on to the boss. Healers or anyone that does damage, be aware of the debuffs going out and dispel when needed, prioritizing Enveloping Winds followed by Lung Burst. When the lightning cloud comes out, stop everything you're doing and move out of it, or if you're the tank, kite the boss out from under it. Rinse and repeat and Thespia will go down easy. But wait, before you leave, make sure you click on the weird looking organ control device thing at the back of the room. The door to the last boss is locked and will only unlock once you click this one, as well as another one behind the next boss that we'll talk about. Head back down that little ramp from the boss's room, up through the tunnel, and hang a right across the bridge, and you'll find Coilfang Slave Masters. These are exactly like the mobs you encountered in the slave pens, in that they will call the slaves to come attack you as well. If you kill the slave master first, you will free the slaves and they will be forever grateful to you for rescuing them and stop attacking you. Or on the flip side, you could kill them in cold blood for a little bit of extra Cenarian Expedition rep, your call. Now I was thinking about this earlier, why you get reputation with the Cenarian Expedition for killing the poor innocent slaves is a little bit confusing and weird, but hey, free rep. Once you're through that hallway with the slaves, you'll come to a bridge that's full of Coilfang lepers. These guys are non-elite and will use a Fire Blast, Frost Nova, Shadow Bolt, and heal. These guys really aren't that bad, just group them up and AoE them down with whatever AoE you have. With these lepers down, it's time to face Mekgineer Steamrigger. He will use a Shrink Ray that will reduce damage done by 35%, but like a true gnomish engineer, it has a chance to backfire. He will randomly toss out a Saw Blade that hits for significant damage as well, and then will use Electrified Net, rooting a player in place for 10 seconds and doing a little bit of damage. The biggest mechanic in this fight is that he will yell when he gets to 75, 50, and 25% health, which calls out about 3 to 5 Coilfang mechanics who will use Rebuild, a channeled spell that repairs the boss, healing him for the duration of the channel. These guys should be immediately killed when they are summoned out. For the most part, this fight is a tank and spank with the DPS worrying about the adds. Run in to start the fight and pump damage into him right off the bat. When he calls the gnomes out, DPS, make sure you switch to them and kill them immediately. Once attacked, they will stop healing the boss and attack you, which is what you're trying to achieve. In heroic mode, gnomes will come out at random intervals to heal the boss, not just when he calls them. Use all the AoE you have and this boss will go down easy. Once again, before you leave, click on the control panel behind the boss to open the door to the last boss. Head back over the bridge, kill the final room of trash mobs, which are all mobs that we've already seen and gone over, and you will reach Warlord Kalithresh. He will use 4 abilities, a spell reflection he will put up that will reflect spells back at the player, an impale that is a physical damage dot, head crack which reduces the target's stamina, and most importantly, Warlord's Rage. Warlord Kalithresh will gain this ability by channeling a spell on one of the Naga distillers around the room. Once he targets a distiller, everyone in the group will be able to target it as well. When this happens, every single DPS dealer will need to switch to the container and kill it before he finishes the channel, because if he does, he will get Warlord's Rage, which massively increases his attack speed and damage, and most of the time leading to a wipe. Walk into range of Warlord to start the fight. What you'll want to do is drag him over to a container so that once he starts casting on the closest one to him, the DPS will be right there to target it. Melee DPS can focus target the container and hit the boss with cleave damage with this positioning. Spellcasters, just make sure you stop casting when the spell shield goes out or you will just end up killing yourself. Once you kill the first container, drag the boss to the next one and wait for that same channel. Rinse and repeat and you'll be looting Warlord Kalithresh's corpse in no time. With all the bosses and trash mobs down in the instance, the last thing to do, super important, hit the subscribe button right under the video, which will guarantee fast runs with no wipes and all the loot drops you need. Looking at you hunters, you'll need that luck for your beast lords. I'm also live on Twitch throughout the week. Stop by sometime, say hi. Let me know which videos you've enjoyed or which ones you'd like to see in the future. That's it for me today though, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.